My principal anguish and the source of all my joys and sorrows from my youth onward has been the incessant, merciless battle between the spirit and the flesh. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to Read the Right Thing Book Reviews. I'm Eric. I hope you're doing well. Today, I will be reviewing The Last Temptation of Christ by Nikos Kazantzakis. And I believe this is the first Greek author that I've reviewed. I first heard about this book because I was interested in the movie directed by Martin Scorsese. There was actually a used bookstore that was going out of business and was having a massive sale, and I saw this book on sale there, so I decided to pick it up. Everyone has an idea of who God is and who Jesus Christ is. Many people shape Jesus to look, sound, act, and be someone who falls into their own belief systems, someone that they want Jesus to be. I think people often project their own desires onto what Jesus is. What happens when we challenge the concept of divinity and who Jesus was? This is exactly what Nikos Kazantzakis does in this book. Kazantzakis presents a more human Jesus, a Jesus who struggles with temptation. And I don't know a ton about Nikos Kazantzakis. I don't know a lot about his biography. But after reading this book, I would guess that he was a man who really struggled with faith throughout his life. This is what he says in the intro. My principal anguish and the source of all my joys and sorrows from my youth onward has been the incessant, merciless battle between the spirit and the flesh. Within me are the dark immemorial forces of the evil one, human and pre-human. Within me too are the luminous forces, human and pre-human, of God. And my soul is the arena where these two armies have clashed and met. The anguish has been intense. I loved my body and did not want it to perish. I loved my soul and did not want it to decay. I have fought to reconcile these two primordial forces, which are so contrary to each other, to make them realize that they are not enemies, but rather fellow workers, so that they might rejoice in their harmony, and so that I might rejoice with them. I did read in a bio that he tried to learn about all sorts of different religions, from Christianity to Buddhism. And his goal in writing this book is so that the reader can become closer to Christ. And he promises that whoever reads this book, they will become closer to Christ. So stay tuned for my thoughts, and I'll let you know what I liked or disliked about the book. Published in 1955, this book had some controversy surrounding it. Because it reimagines the life of Christ and makes him more human, we see Jesus Christ struggling with temptation. And we also see him imagining certain things that a lot of Christians don't want to see Jesus imagining, principally things like women and sex. I know the Catholic Church and a few other Christian organizations tried to have this book banned, and Martin Scorsese also received death threats for making the movie. Now, after I read the book, I don't really get the big deal with all the controversy. I think any Christian who reads the book wouldn't come away thinking it's blasphemous. I think these things just gain traction and people make it out to be something that it isn't. There was controversy surrounding this book, and that's one of the main reasons I wanted to read it. But I have to say, after reading it, I'm somewhat disappointed. I expected to find something, a lot more shocking in this book, and I just didn't find it. So this book is all about the life of Jesus. And the book opens up as we see Jesus sleeping, and he has these nightmares. He's struggling to figure out, who are these dreams, nightmares, and voices coming from? Are they coming from God, or are they coming from Satan? And then we see the life of Jesus, and we see him realizing that he is the Messiah all the way to the crucifixion. And this last temptation, we see him struggling with temptations of living a normal life. Because he is more human, we see him more full of doubt and fear and things that everyone goes through. Kazantzakis, he said this book is about that merciless battle between the body and the soul. And we see that played out in Jesus' life and Jesus' crucifixion. The main item of controversy is Mary Magdalene. I don't believe it's actually ever mentioned in the Bible, but I know a lot of people believe that Mary Magdalene was a prostitute. And in this book, there's a scene where Jesus visits Mary, and he sees multiple men having sex with Mary Magdalene. However, Jesus did not partake of this, but there still are a few scenes that show that he may struggle with the temptation of seeing this beautiful woman. One scene in particular is he's telling a rabbi that he sees and sometimes thinks about Mary's naked body. But then he says he imagines her as a lake, and many people of the city are around this lake, and he is the sun shining down on it. So nothing in this book is very pornographic or sexual in nature. Kazantzakis writes with a poetic style, and he often writes how Jesus taught, using metaphors and stories to get his point across. It's all philosophical. The tone of the book is very somber, spiritual, and philosophical. It wasn't my favorite book I've read. I love the first 50 pages and also the last 50 pages, but I have to be honest, the middle was kind of a slog to get through. Maybe his writing was just a little too poetic for me, or maybe I'm so used to the original Gospels, but I just found myself bored and not really enjoying it until the very end. I enjoyed the ideas that it presented. I just didn't really enjoy the presentation and the narrative style. Would I agree that this book is blasphemous? I don't think so. I think it's a really interesting interpretation of Jesus' life. And I think any Christian who actually reads it will come away with, a new understanding of the possibility of who Jesus could have been. Like I said, every religion and person, they seem to project on who they want Jesus to be. And I remember in college in different art classes that it's interesting to see how Jesus is portrayed in art throughout history. In the beginning, he was portrayed as maybe a little more feminine and weak and thin. And throughout time, he became stronger, more masculine, and more white as well. Now, I'm not sure if this novel is still perceived as very controversial. Like I said, I think if a Christian were to read this, they wouldn't find much controversy. Now, the movie may be a little different because it does show more nudity. When nudity is described on the page, it's very different than actually seeing a naked woman. But I do have to say, I love the movie a lot more than the book. I think Scorsese did a very good job adapting this. So my personal opinion of this book, I don't think this book was necessarily the right thing for me. I'm still glad I read it, but like I said, the middle was quite a slog to get through. I was moved by many of the scenes, but I don't know if it was necessarily worth reading the entire thing. If you're on the fence about reading this one, maybe just go see the movie by Scorsese. So that was my quick review and a few thoughts on The Last Temptation of Christ by Nikos Kazantzakis. If you've read this book and you thought this was the right thing for you, please let me know in the comments. I was talking with some friends about it and I said, yeah, I don't know, maybe I just missed something. Maybe I wasn't quite ready, or maybe I wasn't in the right headspace to read this book. Something about this book just missed. I didn't love it as much as I thought I would. And I've read other books about this struggle of faith. The book I think of is Silence by Shusaku Endo, and I absolutely love that book. But if you're looking for a novel that challenges different views of Jesus, then I would say definitely read this and give it a chance. If you enjoyed this video, please hit a like and consider subscribing to the channel. I really appreciate it. Let me know what you thought about The Last Temptation of Christ in the comments. And as always, read the right thing.